This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Connor O'Gara is here from Saturday Down South, national columnist covering all things SEC, and of course dabbling in anything that deals with college football. Connor, how you doing? How was your weekend?
I'm good, man. I feel bad. I have said in a couple of different Saturday Down South platforms, including my own podcast, Saturday Down South Podcast. Go subscribe, go listen. I accidentally said that Arkansas was 0-3 in SEC play in a couple of different places, and I have already moved past the South Carolina win, and I felt bad about that. I did, because when you're on a losing streak, the last thing you need is somebody saying that your losing streak is even worse than it actually is.
I don't know if I'd call that salt in the wound, because I don't think it is, because it at least acknowledges that there is one SEC victory for Arkansas. Don't have an SEC matchup this weekend, but in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, it'll be Auburn. I don't know what Arkansas could have done at Mississippi State outside of maybe catching a couple of interceptable passes, converting on a couple of fourth downs inside the 10. But, Connor, I mean, when you watch that game, they were on their heels from the very start of the football game. And I think Mississippi State played very well, and I think it's Mike Leach's best team there, no doubt. It would have taken a gargantuan performance for the Hogs to upset them.
It might be Mike Leach's best team ever. I mean, it's really starting to set up well. And they have had one bad quarter of football all year, and that's it. And everybody else, they've blown out. I mean, that game, if Malik Hornsby doesn't come in and start connecting on some of those deep throws, I think that game easily could have been 42-0. I mean, it was bad. They really looked like the better team all around, and I think we could probably give Will Rogers the entire duration of this interview to be able to find an open receiver, and he would have had that kind of time against Arkansas, which, I get it. If you're Barry Odom, you kind of have to feel like you play drop eight coverage, because when you're as bad as Arkansas has been on the back end, you need all the help that you can get. But at the same time, it's like, man, could they not disguise some blitzes? Could they not add in some more creative ways to try and generate pressure? Can they not try and confuse these tackles in some way, shape, or form? Because Will Rogers just picked them apart. I mean, it wasn't even just that. The three-man front, Mike Leach, of all people, decided that he could adjust and run the football. I mean, they ran the ball 36 times in that game. Dylan Johnson looks like a man on a mission. So, yeah, I don't really know what adjustments could have been made other than maybe giving Malik Hornsby the start from the jump. And even then, I don't think that Arkansas wins that game, because Mississippi State's just a better team right now.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels their ability to run, and I'd be interested to see how they run against a team that's planning for them to run and will play against it at times. But we know we saw it with our own eyes, and that was impressive. But I think on the Arkansas end of things, these last 2 weeks, there's this understanding you play against Alabama that they're going to score. Maybe you wouldn't have expected them to score as much with Jalen Milroe at quarterback, and this past weekend against A&M, they didn't, but scored enough. And Mississippi State, just a high-powered offense. You have to score points against these teams. And right now, Connor, Arkansas is gaining yards, not scoring the points that go with the yards. They're not finishing enough drives. It's like that Ole Miss game from last year. That was in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. But they finished almost every drive they had a chance to finish. So there was still a bright spot you could take away from it. For these last 3 games, when I'm looking at Arkansas's offense, and it's not because Malik Hornsby was a quarterback this last week, there is something going on where the yards don't equal the points. They should be scoring more than they are, not scoring inside the red zone, turning it over, and fourth down conversions are coming up big.
Yeah, this team has adjustments to make, and I think that there's frustration with Kendall Briles, but at the same time, I do think that you don't really have that possession receiver really at this point. You don't have that guy that's going to consistently move the chains for you. I know Jaden Hazelwood gets free a couple of different times in that game, but you still lack that guy that's going to consistently be like, okay, 3rd and 6, he's getting open. He's going to know where he is, find the soft spot in the zone. You're going to be able to target him. Boom, one read, go, keep the drive alive, keep this thing going. Instead, when they get behind schedule, it's kind of like, they don't really have much of a chance. And that's a problem. And, I think in this game specifically, you saw Hornsby in the short-range passing, the accuracy's not there. There's a reason he hasn't been a starting quarterback, and as impressive as some of the deep balls were, it's still a reminder that you need to be pretty polished to consistently put together scoring drives in this league against defense that knows what it's doing, which Mississippi State does. I mean, Mississippi State has 17 guys on that two deep who are in year 3 in Zach Arnett's defense, and it shows. I mean, they look like they're always kind of in the right spot, and they are always making those plays. And, it's difficult to beat a team that does that, and especially when it looks like Mississippi State can just kind of get whatever it wants offensively. And that's the second consecutive week in which we saw a coordinator pretty drastically adjust his game plan to be able to beat Barry Odom in what he was presenting.
All right, let's go around the SEC here a little bit. Are we all in on Tennessee after a dismantling of LSU? I mean, they play really, really well. We can still be all in on Tennessee, even if they lose to Alabama on Saturday, because Hendon Hooker, what do I have the notes? I don't know, I might have forgotten on my notes here. But is it like 33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in his career at Tennessee? It's crazy. I know they may be down their starting safety, McCullough, because of the arrest on Sunday. But how do you feel about Tennessee this weekend?
I haven't got quite there just yet to do a full breakdown of the game. I'm still leaning Alabama to be able to win this game. And look, I said in the preseason, I thought Tennessee was going 9-3, and I thought they were going to beat Georgia this year. And everything that I've seen from them so far has confirmed my faith in them, because I sipped a lot of Big Orange Kool-Aid this offseason. I really did. But Hooker is just incredible. I mean, he's amazing. And I know there are a lot of Arkansas fans in the offseason who are kind of wondering, like, all right, like why do you consider Hooker better than KJ? And if you watched on Saturday, you just see the poise. You see how confident he is in that scheme, where Jaden Daniels can't pull the trigger when he's got one-on-one coverage, and Brian Kelly's losing his mind. And on the very next play, after Tennessee takes over, Hendon Hooker looks off one safety, and then Jalen Hyatt, he just drops it in a bucket, 45 yards downfield, boom, touchdown, just like that. Like, that's what this Tennessee offense does. You didn't even realize that they were without Cedric Tillman in that game. Their best receiver, probably the best receiver in the SEC, and they just keep going. And what's been impressive, I think, so far, and the reason that they've been as good as they've been, is because they can stop the run. And when you can stop the run in this league, you can have a weakness. Now, their pass defense, their pass defense is actually worse than Arkansas's right now. The numbers are pretty bad. And if they have to face Bryce Young, that's going to be a difficult thing to overcome. But at the same time, they have a chance each and every week because of that offense, because of the personnel, because of Hendon Hooker, and because what they've been able to do improving as a run defense.
All right. Now, how about Kentucky without Will Levis? And not very pretty. I mean, if Arkansas needs KJ Jefferson, well, I'd say Kentucky definitely needs Will Levis too, don't they? Yeah,
and look, they absolutely do, and they come out with a different overall plan if Will Levis is out there. I mean, if you watch that game, the opening play, they're trying to trick play with their redshirt freshman quarterback, Kaya Sharon, who came in with 2 career snaps. Not starts, but snaps. And it was disastrous. South Carolina forced a fumble. They take over from the Kentucky 2-yard line. I mean, that was the story of the day. And, Kentucky has other issues that it's still trying to work through. They still can't block anybody, man. It's bad. Like, the big blue wall is now the big blue gate. It's been terrible. They just can't stop anybody from getting to the quarterback, and that's an especially bad formula for a redshirt freshman who is pretty much limited in what he's able to do in terms of the types of throws he's comfortable with. But Kentucky's special teams is bad, and then, they had their top 3 receivers all left that game with injuries. So you're kind of looking around going, man, this Kentucky team, 8 days earlier, we're talking about whether or not they're going to be worthy of top 5 consideration. And now it's kind of like, man, I don't feel like they deserve to be in the top 25. And even if Will Levis comes back, they're going to face that Mississippi State team that Arkansas fans just got an up close look at of how good they really are. So, yeah, Kentucky needs to find answers in a hurry. South Carolina kind of punched them in the mouth and deserved to win that game. And they might have won that game even if Will Levis was out there.
I haven't watched this game, and I know you had. You mentioned Mississippi State's played one bad quarter. How the heck did that team lose to LSU?
They had the muffed punt from Austin Williams, who has been in college as long as Bumper Pool has, since the George W. Bush administration, I believe. They had the muffed punt on that play, and then in the fourth quarter, LSU just decided, oh, wait, B.J. Ojulari can beat their tackle every single time, and he can get to Will Rogers. And then on the flip side, Jade Daniels did the thing where if you're playing like Madden or NCAA 14, where you find that one play that works, and you just do it over and over and over again and force the opposing, whoever you're playing against to stop you. And they basically did that on these like 8-yard out routes on third down. And then they just took over the game. And it was really lopsided from that point on. But that's just kind of who LSU up until Saturday has been, even against Florida State, where they could just have everything go wrong for the first 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, they're like, we can figure some things out. We're only down a couple of touchdowns. That's no big deal. And then they just come back. And, yeah, that's still the most baffling quarter of football maybe in SEC play that we've seen all year, because nothing about that result makes sense looking back.
So I'm looking at the top 5 in both of the polls. And, of course, these are not the polls that decide who plays in the playoff, but eventually these things sometimes look the same. I know they're all different. It's the same 5 teams, though. And it does feel like, man, I don't know who's going to stop Alabama. I think that if they get Bryce Young back, nobody right now. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson. Is there any way right now, outside of some incredible surprise or injuries, that we don't see these 4 teams in the playoff come January?
No, I think it's possible. That number 4 spot is always a little bit interesting, right? I mean, I had Utah going there. I had Oklahoma in the college ball playoff. My previous predictions, eating some crow on that one. I wouldn't rule that out for the 4th spot. What I think is evident, it was evident in the offseason, it's still really evident right now. There are the 3 best teams in college football are pretty obvious in my opinion, and it doesn't include Clemson. And I still need to see what it looks like for Clemson against one of those, elite teams, because if you kind of go back and look, they actually deserved to lose that semifinal game back in 2019 against Ohio State. They had the fumble ruling where Ohio State returned for a touchdown. They should have lost that game. And I think Clemson, you could actually make the case, basically since like 2018 when they blew out Bama in the championship, has kind of struggled against that elite competition. And I would actually put those 3 teams, though, Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, in whatever order you want, as still the only 3 teams that can win a national championship. I don't think anybody else in the sport can. If somebody else besides those 3 makes it to a national championship game, I'll be surprised. But, yeah, it does feel very top-heavy. It's never felt more top-heavy in the sport, in my opinion. And now we're pretty much heading for a playoff that looks like it's going to be decided by those teams. But, hey, if Tennessee beats Bama this weekend, you never know. And that would definitely shake things up a little bit. I think there are a lot of people who will definitely be rooting for that on Saturday in Knoxville.
All right, last thing, and it's Big Ten, but it does have a connection to Arkansas. You see who's back in the top 25 for the first time since 2011?
Oh, Burt.
Yep.
Burt.
Brett Bielema is Illinois fighting the line. They got a clear path to the Big Ten West, too.
It's fitting. I came on your airwaves and I talked about Burt being the tuna in the back of the pantry that nobody wanted. And for many years, that's what he was in terms of trying to get a job post-Arkansas. And what did I have yesterday on this day in which Illinois gets into the AP Top 25 for the first time in over a decade, thanks to a certain Brett Bielema? I had some tuna and crackers that was in the back of the pantry because I was really hungry. And I didn't do that on purpose, but it feels like destiny that happened because, man, Brett has really shown a lot of people that he knows what he's doing, and Illinois looks better right now than it did at any point of the Lovie Smith era. And I think that for people like myself who kind of doubted his abilities as a head coach and said, like, hey, it's never going to work, man, we're eating some crow, or I'd rather eating some tuna right now.
I remember when you said that, too. I thought you were talking Bill Parcells, but no, it was Brett Bielema.
Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.